Did you guys see Vampires vs. Bronx? I was not expecting this movie to be as good as it was. I stumbled upon it on Netflix and I really enjoyed it. This movie is about a boy who's trying to save a bodega from closing down when he encounters vampires. It started out with a really great intro that got right into the action. I was so happy to see the characters in this being Dominican and primarily Afro-Latino Dominican. Shout out to that, especially during this Hispanic Heritage Month. The environment felt so real except for the lack of Bronx accents. Or they could be realistic. Does the younger generation sound this way? Because in Florida, I know when I used to come down to Orlando back in the 90s, Floridians had a Floridian accent. But now when you talk to the average Central Florida young person, they no longer have that Floridian accent and it sounds like a more neutral American accent. So I don't know if the same thing is happening in the Bronx. I know my friends that I know from the Bronx that are my age still have a very thick Bronx accent. It could also be that none of the young actors that they chose could do a Bronx accent, but they're still really good actors, so I'm not hating on them for that. Anyway, that was just one small detail I noticed, but it doesn't take anything away from the movie. This was so fun to watch. It felt like an 80s horror movie in a lot of ways. Another side note, it was great to see children of color, especially black children, get to just be kids on film. I especially appreciate all of the beautiful, identifiably black young ladies in the movie. This is one of the funniest horror comedies I've seen in a very long time. And I really love this movie. There were so many little touches in there that I like to see. Like at one point, one of the characters is reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King. There's another part where the kids are actually watching the original Blade. And the icon that's like the logo for the company that's buying up the properties has a picture of Vlad the Impaler on it. This movie pays homage to a lot of really good vampire movies, like the aforementioned Salem's Lot, I would say Fright Night, The Lost Boys, and of course Blade. Another movie that this kind of reminded me of was Attack the Block, which was a UK movie that came out, I want to say almost 10 years ago, but I could be wrong. It starred John Boyega and was also about some kids in the city having to fight aliens instead of vampires, but it kind of had a similar feel to this movie with some of the comedic elements as well. Initially I was going to pair this with Attack the Block as a double feature because I think they go together pretty well, especially for movies that the whole family can watch together. There isn't any nudity or foul language. The scares are pretty mild, so this is definitely something that's safe. That I wouldn't mind my 10-year-old nephew watching it, so I definitely recommend it if you want to watch a horror movie together. And for it to be a vampire movie, there really isn't any gore. That said, I found that it was written in a way that's enjoyable for both adults and children. There's some gags that I think kids will laugh at, and then there's some gags that might go over their heads that adults will laugh at. And I appreciate that. Like I said, initially was going to pair this with another movie as a double feature review, but I couldn't decide which movie would go best with this one. But here are a few suggestions of what I think would go well with this movie. First and foremost, Fright Night and The Lost Boys, because of course kids having to deal with vampires, but also The People Under the Stairs because it has an underlying theme of gentrification and also stars a little black boy who's trying to save his neighborhood. Very similar theme. Also, People on the Stairs was one of my favorite movies as a kid because we didn't have a whole lot of horror movies with young black protagonists. So it always stands out to me as a classic movie. And one of Wes Craven's underrated classics. And of course, like I said, Attack the Block. I mean, that's like almost a natural double feature with this. But to wrap it up, Vampires vs. the Bronx was really great. I would love to see sequels. I want to see like Werewolves versus Queens. What else can we do? Like Zombies versus Brooklyn. Like I could see this happening. I want it to happen. I want sequels to happen because this was so good. I really enjoyed it. But like I always say, don't take my word for it. Just because I love something doesn't mean you won't hate it. And just because I hate something doesn't mean you won't love it. Watch it for yourself and let me know what you think of Vampires versus the Bronx.